I'm Leon Todd for G66. Welcome to another Tuesday Tone Tip. On today's video, we're on the FM9 yet again, and I have the latest public beta release for Firmware 3 loaded up. This adds a massive number of new features and functions. There's everything from the scene ignore function from the AxeFX 3 and FM3 to songs and set lists from the AxeFX 3, as well as a whole bunch of improvements to existing blocks like the amp block, including the speaker tab and the reverb block. And we're actually going to hone in on the reverb block today because I want to show you three new effect types in there: echo hall, echo room, and echo plate, which make it really easy to dial in a great lead delay sound. Before we do that, I've got the USA Pre Lead 2 Yellow dialed up with my go-to cabinet IR. This one is available for free from Axchange. You can see in the cab block, I've got a little bit of a low cut and a high cut happening in there, and in the amp block, kind of typical Mesa Boogie Mark series style thing going on. Bass and mid really low, treble and overdrive cranked up. I've got a nice bass boost and a little bit of a mid scoop there in the graphic EQ. This is what it sounds like on my PRS Custom 24 bridge pickup. Alrighty, sounds pretty filthy, pretty glorious right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kick in the London Plate reverb. This is kind of my go-to reverb if I wanted to have a nice bit of ambience on a lead sound. Let's hear it. Very nice indeed. I like this reverb because to my ears it sounds warm, and if we take a peek under the hood at the EQ section, you can see there's quite a severe high cut in there, which would contribute to this sounding quite warm, as I just described. Now, the update to the reverb block in here concerns the pre-delay section. The amount of pre-delay that you can have now goes up to 1000 milliseconds, or a whole second, and you can add feedback and mix to that basic echo in there. So what this lets you do is have a really pronounced initial delay with some feedback along with this really nice reverb type. And the easiest way to hear this is to go to the reverb type and select echo plate. This is essentially built off the same starting point as the London plate, but you can see there's now a 500 millisecond pre-delay with 33% feedback and the mix at 50%. Let's just hear this at the stock setting. You get the initial echo, but then it washes away into this beautiful ambient reverb. So we can try echo plate. There's two other types in there. Echo room, which I'll bring up right now. This has a shorter time and a smaller size. The stock setting is with a slightly shorter pre-delay and less mix. Let's just hear it. That is on the more subtle side. Echo hall is on the other side of the coin. It is far more pronounced and a lot bigger and juicier. Let's just hear it at the stock settings, and then we will get into this echo hall and tweak it a little bit. Then you'll be able to hear some of these types over a track. So echo hall at stock settings. Let's start here. What I've actually done is I've moved over to scene 2, where I've got the input boost and the fat switch engaged on here. So I've got a crazy amount of gain now, as if the amount of gain that I had before wasn't crazy enough. Let's do this. Let's bring the mix control up on this so we can really hear a pronounced effect on there. And then I am going to bring the feedback and the mix up for the delay, or the pre-delay in here. Think of this as the echo part of our tone. Let's check this out now. if I want to tweak, say, the amount of delay time, I could do that by changing the pre-delay knob. Let's go for a shorter, almost rhythmic delay in here. And then I will play around with the time and the size on the reverb because they are going to control the big bloomy tail on there. Let's try this. Let's try bring the time up, bring it right up to about 10 seconds. This is epic now. Maybe let's roll with the time at around 5 seconds, and now I can play with the size. Let's try a really small size to get started. And then a much larger space. I'll bring the size down to about 80. Again, we're going for a big, wet lead guitar sound here, so I'm not shy about cranking up the time and the size. One last little thing that I really like on here, actually two things that I really like on here, going into the EQ and applying a little bit of a low cut in here to just clean up the low end, and then applying just a little bit of modulation. I like to bring the rate up to about 0.4, 0.5 hertz on there. Let's have a listen to this now. So the EQ cut on there is really just helping to clean up the low end and keep things nice and articulate, whereas the modulation is just adding a little bit of character. You can even go in there and use the ducker, maybe start with a threshold around -30 and the attenuation around, say, 9 to 12 dB. I like the release time up around 100 milliseconds on there. So when you're playing, that big epic ambient reverb, delay, echo verb thing will get pushed under your main playing. So as I'm playing, it's less pronounced, but then as soon as I stop, I get that wonderful, lush halo around all the notes on there. Let me know how you like these new reverb types in the FM9. They're also in the Axe FX3 as well. And feel free to suggest any video topics for upcoming Tuesday Tone Tips in the comments. Hope you all have a fantastic week, and I will see you next Tuesday. Cheers.